Welcome back to the Cheap Heat Productions podcast. Welcome back today to the Cheap Heat Productions podcast. And today I've got a great guest. We're going to dive back into the world of horror films again on the show. Mr. CJ Graham, that most of you would know from Friday the 13th, Part 6. CJ, how are you doing today?
Hey, good. Thank you, Maurice, for inviting me. Cheap Heat Productions. It's about time you have Jason Voorhees on your show.
Yeah, you're the second Jason we've had. We've had Ari Lehman on.
I heard, but Ari was just like a young person, like 9 years old, and now he is an adult. Just so you know, but in the original 1980, he was, just about 14, 13 years old. So if you got a chance to meet Ari, he's a personality that's just larger than life.
I had great fun with him, and he's still living the Jason life, and he's got a cool band to go with it, and he's doing great things. Fair play to him.
Yeah, true.
I'm assuming you guys meet a lot on the road at conventions and things like that.
I do, as a matter of fact. Maurice, I retired from running casino resorts about 4 years ago, where I was chief operating officer, general manager of multiple casino resorts. So, I was running resorts with give or take 2,500 employees. And when I stepped away 4 years ago, I started doing the network of conventions. I had no idea how world renowned Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th, and the Hockey Mask had become. I mean, I knew it was a big thing, but not to the magnitude where, later this year I'll be going over to the United Kingdom. A couple of years ago I was in Sweden. I'll be in everywhere from New Jersey to Texas this year doing conventions. And yes, I will see Ari at a couple conventions.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit about conventions and stuff you have coming up later on. But what I want to know is, I read before that you were involved in the nightclub business before getting into the stunt work and acting. Like, how did you get on, and how long did you work doing the nightclub stuff?
It's interesting because I've had a very creative life, to be quite honest. I can go all the way back 47 years ago. I was in the military. But
wow.
Running nightclubs in the 80s in Los Angeles was fun to begin with. But then I had a hypnotist on a Thursday night, and he decided to bring in a production crew to take a filming of his show, and then preferably he was going to use it for editing it down to get some other jobs, possibly Las Vegas. Just happens that the production crew was the people that did all the special effects on Part 4 with Ted White. So they had an idea, why don't we put CJ in the wardrobe, because we still have it from Ted White. He's about the same size, 6'3", 6'4". And we did. And when I say this, the rest is history. They were so impressed that they said, we're going to cast you for Jason. And I kind of in my own senseless way, giggled and said, yeah, whatever. And truly, the rest is history.
And that's a pretty amazing story. So it was kind of a case of right place and right time.
Yeah, Maurice, I mean, once you get the job, whatever it is, you got to deliver the product. So yes, being in the right place, right time, got the opportunity. And then when I stepped on the set, it was a matter of deliverance. And I'm proud to say I think we did a great job. And Part 6 was what it was meant to be, as a launching platform to bring Friday the 13th back to where it is today.
Yeah, there was a lot of differences in it, like a lot of humor and things like that weren't really sprinkled into the show. But how did that contact come about from, say, you doing the audition in the nightclub to you being on set?
Yeah, I actually got a call from Real Effects. I went down to Paramount Studios, met Frank Mancuso Jr., and I met Michael Nomad, the stunt coordinator, and of course Tom McLaughlin, the writer-director. And it was really a couple meetings at that point. Now, remember, I was not a qualified stunt person. I was just, you know, only a few years out of the military and just kind of big and maybe a little attitude.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. I mean, I got real fortunate. I was not the first selection. They did go with a stunt man. Unfortunately for him, and fortunately for me, the one scene where the paintballs hit the midsection of the body, that's not my body. Most people just assume I've got padding on. You know, the person that did it was a little thicker than I and didn't really come across. So that person was released the next day, which is called a daily, and I was flown down in 3 days. But they kept that one scene because they'd already done the special effects, and some of the people, actors, had already been taken off the set and sent home.
Yeah, it's not like these days where you can implement stuff with CGI and things like that. It was way before their time. And I'm a big fan of like classic horror from the 80s and the 90s. I'll give you an example. The cinemas, the theaters were closed here for the last year. And the other day, I think last week they opened. So we went to see The Conjuring 3 because it was the only kind of horror movie, but it just doesn't do it for me. Like I'm more into the classics, the Freddys, the Jasons, the Michael Myers, the Chuckies. What's your take on modern horror these days?
Well, I'm an old school person. I really enjoy the Universal horror monsters, the black and whites, Frankenstein, Mummy, Werewolf, Dracula. Those three principles are what I kind of relate Freddy, Leatherface, Michael Myers, and Jason to. They kind of stood the test of time, as I call us the Four Musketeers have.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you said earlier a moment ago, that I really think that the films that we've done, they're trying to be recreated today, a little more of a simple format where people can actually watch them. And, I mean, I love the franchise, you know, Fast and Furious, for instance. And I love the
Yeah.
fact that it's really cool, but how many times can you jump out of an airplane, land on a tank, do a somersault, pick up a 50 cal machine gun and shoot it?
Yeah.
That's cool from a special effects perspective, and trust me, that takes a lot of work on the stunt people and the actors and actresses. However, Friday the 13th and some of these others, Chucky the Cheese, a much more similar format, they're kind of wicked because, you could look up at your door right now and it could explode and Jason could step through physically, not with the make of a camera, but, a person of my size and qualifications can nail that door and blow it open with a good fan behind it where it explodes, and it will blow your mind. The same thing it does when you're sitting in that seat at the theater and Jason just comes through the door like there's nothing there. It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and in terms of part six, then itself, like it seems to be kind of within the fans more of the cult movie, like, and it's their choice, like of probably the best movie that there is in the franchise, maybe aside from the original, because people obviously love originals as well. Like, how does that make you feel to be involved in a film that's so close with the fans' heart?
Well, here we are 3 decades later talking about it, Marie. So, number
Yeah,
one, very humbly appreciative to the fans and to the franchise. Jason has become an iconic worldwide brand, and I get to be one of just a few people that have wore that hockey mask and participated in that franchise. So, I always thank the fans for that. As far as part six, I got lucky with that. Again, you got to remember part six has got the great opening with James Bond, so to speak.
yeah,
It's got the opening where Jason comes back to life like Frankenstein. And of course, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Alice Cooper does the music, so that's really cool. And then last but not least, I get to wear a Batman utility belt, so go figure.
Part six is ironic as well because I'm a big fan of Halloween, and my favorite Halloween is also part six.
Well, I got to pick on Halloween a little bit. I know Tyler and all the guys that have played Tony, etc. But I always tell my fans that real men use a machete, not an Outback steak knife. So let it go on the air.
Do you think that there'd ever be a film similar to Freddy versus Jason of, like, say, Jason versus Michael Myers, or would you be interested in doing something like that?
I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of Alien versus Predator as an
Yeah.
example. I really think that the film should be held on its own as a singular rather than a plural. So, that's an opinion. Everybody has an a butt. just
Yeah.
like I've got an opinion. But I personally, Tom McLaughlin has written a new script. He is doing his best to engage with Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Miller, and the studios to see if he could be engaged in it. He's went on a podcast over the last year and talked a little bit about it, and even spoken to me. I'm still the same exact size. The only thing is my face is a little uglier. But since I get to wear a hockey mask, it's all good. I would look at it this way, Maurice. If not being, I'm not a director, I'm not a producer, but I don't want to go to space. So
Yeah.
if the film has merit, and most importantly, if I could deliver a product as good or better than Jason in Part 6, I'd be on board for it. I just don't want to be that professional player that came back to play sports and really should have stayed retired.
Yeah, so you want to do it like if it's right,
Yes,
basically.
I want to make sure, I'm a little older now. I don't tuck and roll as fast as I used to. When I hit the ground, I have horses. When I get hit the ground, I go thump, and it hurts a little more than it used to. So I think it's a combination of, could I give the fans the product? I don't want to embarrass the character. And more importantly, I don't want to embarrass myself, because I do have a good, solid relationship with my fans from the deliverance of Part 6.
When you touched on the character there, and when you came in to play the character in Part 6, what differences, if any, did you do based on your own assumption of what way the character should act?
Interesting enough, I had no idea of the one scene or the character, the individual that was released. I
Yeah.
didn't know anything. Even today, I know minimal. I just know that person's a stuntman and went on to be a good director. With that being said, I didn't really perceive anyway. 6'3", 250, you kind of walk a certain way with an authority walk. Now, the interesting thing is, when you put a hockey mask on and you can only see straight forward, you can't even see your feet when you're walking, let alone peripheral vision, you learn to really walk firmly, because every time you put your foot down, you got to make sure it hits the ground firmly. Otherwise, you might fall down and look really embarrassed.
In the lead up to 6, then, like it says in your bios and stuff that you were a stuntman, did you do any stunt work on set before then, or were you just thrown in at the deep end?
I was thrown in at the very deep end. The only thing is, I'm a quick learner and I have no intent to fail. So I never went to stunt school. I did a panel a couple of years ago with Steve Dash and a friend of mine, Kane Hodder, and both those were talking about their stunt schools, their stunt experience. And when it came to my answer, I never went to stunt school. And Kane just looked at me like, what?
Yeah.
I was just told what to do. My stunt coordinator walked me through it, and I did it. Doesn't make me better than anybody. It might make me crazier than most people, but I really had a lot of faith in Michael Nomad, who was the stunt coordinator. I had faith in my physical capabilities. All my buddies at that time were gladiators in the movies. We all worked out at the same Gold's Gym. We all were competing for different, structural size films and commercials. So I just thought it was normal to walk in and be set on fire. I didn't even think about it. They said, hey, we're going to put you in a race car driver's suit. We're going to put the wardrobe. We're going to gel you up. You're going to step into the flame. And guess what? Flame on. I had no idea anything else. Not that I'm stupid. I just was a little on the edge, but I always knew I was in control.
Yeah. When you look on modern horror today, is there anything that you like about it? Is there any films that came out recently that you like, or do you just think it's completely different to what it was in the 80s and 90s?
It's a hard question to answer, Maurice, because you take a look at the clowns, you take a look at Chucky and a few of those. You kind of want to know, they're very popular right now. The question I have will be, in 3 decades, how they favor up. I have been very fortunate with the people I keep, meaning Michael Myers and Freddy, Leatherface. They've all maintained a very solid figure in the horror industry. Now, I can't say whether these films will still be successful in 30 years. I guess that's still open for interpretation, and we'll see what happens. I just know that I'm very, very fortunate that I've been part of a genre that seems to continue to go on. I can guarantee you, conservatively, 50% of your listeners weren't even born 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And for me to sit here and talk to them, what an honor. I mean that. What an honor, to be able to say, hey, I played Jason in Friday the 13th. And people just, their jaws drop like, oh, I remember when I saw that with my mom, my dad, my grandpa. It brings back memories. And to young folks, I went to a convention a while back, and there was a 2-year-old, barely 2 feet high, in full wardrobe, dressed up as Jason Part 2.
Wow.
And I just looked at this little person, again, 2 years old, and I'm 64. And I'm thinking, this is crazy.
I just when you touched on the It remake, and I had Christine Elise McCarthy on the podcast about 6 months ago, and she was the main actor in Child's Play 2. And
Yes.
they're going now to film in Canada at the moment for the TV show. But I'm a big Chucky fan as well. But when I see TV shows, I just kind of immediately get worried. Like, will they hold up? Kind of touching back to what you said about the It remakes and the pattern of where the product is going. But hopefully it goes well for them, and wish them the best. But you just don't know
Always.
with TV.
Yeah, you always wish them the best. It's just sometimes it can become diluted.
Yeah.
If you remember back in the late 80s, there was a series called Friday the 13th.
Yes.
I believe it was a weekly, and it just didn't have the same formula or launching platform, but the name was there, Friday the 13th. But you always wish him the best. A good friend of mine, Derek Mears, who played Jason in 2009, he just had a series last year, Swamp Creature, and unfortunately it went for a whole year and it wasn't picked up. Really cool feature, kind of a throwback to the 80s and the 70s as far as the way it was put together and made. And the creature itself was just amazing, and not too much green screen. It was really for real of everything he did. Unfortunately, it wasn't picked up. So that gives you an idea how you're not sure if things are going to work, but you just never know.
At the same time, though, with the Friday the 13th series coming out on television, I don't think it was received too well at the time. But people, much like the Child's Play remake that I seen a couple of years ago, kind of keep it separate from the main franchise, and it didn't damage you guys in any way, really.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. You really want to separate the two, and show that there's a parallel, but at the same time, there shouldn't be a direct reflection like looking in the mirror.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the movie Freddy versus Jason?
I know Ken, and of course I know Robert.
Yeah.
You may not know Ken, or have Ken is 6'6", just so you know. I'm 6'3", 6'4". I always say 6'4" when I wake up, 6'3" when I go to bed. But Ken's a big man. I did a photo op with him at Texas Frightmare a couple of years ago in wardrobe, and he was huge. And I said, "Why are you so big?" He goes, "Well, he also wears a 2-inch platform that they put him in, so it made him 6'8". Now Robert is a normal sized human being, 5'9".
Yeah.
So it was just immense. As far as what I thought of the two, I mean, again, I'm more of a big fan of Freddy as Freddy and Jason as Jason, and if they cross paths, it becomes a little diluted, in my opinion. And you really got to look at the storyline. And if you don't know all the story about Freddy and all the story about Jason, you may not embrace a series of that magnitude. So sometimes I think it's confusing for the viewer and may not get the feedback you anticipated.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that film, I kind of enjoyed it from a cheesy, nostalgic point of view of having the two characters coming together. But at the same time, it was kind of more of I suppose, a box office kind of movie, wasn't it? Just to kind of maybe bring more casual fans in to see the product as well, and hopefully look back on the previous films.
Yeah, let's hope so, because unfortunately, sometimes the film industry is just like any other business industry. They're looking at the numbers, the ratios, they're looking at the algorithms of what they can bring in for a film over a 12-month window, and then longevity over worldwide release. And a movie like Friday the 13th and, of course, Freddy, they do have their intimate following. And if they can bring the two together and enhance that following, logically, it's a good business thought. Doesn't mean it always worked, because not everybody has a high opinion of Friday the 13th, where Jason versus Freddy. Some people loved it. Some people don't even count it as part of the series. So there are
Yeah.
mixed emotions about it.
Yeah, I think it is separate from both series, really. It was just kind of maybe it seems like a one-off anyway. I don't know if they have plans to make another one, but I'm a big Child's Play Chucky fan, but I don't think I'd like to see Chucky versus Leprechaun, for example.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing. Leprechaun has its following, Chucky has its following, Scream has its following, as does, as I said earlier, when you start looking at Alien versus Predator, well, Predator was, pretty badass, and so was Alien. So if you bring the two together, again, if you don't know the full storyline going back all the way through, for a newcomer, it can be a little confusing.
Let's talk a little bit about Friday the 13th Vengeance and your involvement in that. And I was lucky enough to talk to Jason Brooks a couple of months ago as well. And what was it like being involved in that project?
I did that. Friday the 13th always has been my heart. Jason Brooks, independent filmmaker, asked me if I would participate in Vengeance 1.
Yeah.
And there's always been communication and talk about Elias Voorhees,
Hmm.
the father of Jason. For me, it was just fun. I mean, myself and Steve Dash both participated. Both of us donated our wages to a charity, because we weren't looking for a paycheck. We thought it'd be fun, and we enjoyed the time. The film itself did well. I believe Vengeance 2, which is starting shooting here in the next couple of weeks, will do much better, because now Jason Brooks has some more experience under his belt, from the production side and the directing side. And once again, he'll play Jason. I was asked to come back and play Elias Voorhees again. In fact, that's why I'm starting to grow a beard,
Yeah.
because in
And
30 days I will be doing that shot. I don't know if you can see this, but if you can, here's what I will look like in the movie. Can you see
okay,
that?
yeah, yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
All right. To give you an idea, so I'm kind of excited about Vengeance 2. And from what I understand from Jason Brooks, is daddy, father, has a larger role, and I get to kill more people. So that's exciting to add to my kill count.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, there are some people in that film, and I won't say who they are, but there are 3 or 4 folks that are involved in franchise from Halloween to Friday the 13th, to summer camp, that'll be involved in that participation to give it that flair and that flashback to those 80s.
Yeah, because the first movie was it was real gritty and it was kind of old school as well. So I think he's going to go with more of the same kind of vibe this time.
Yeah, and I think that's always been their intent to stay with it. The first
Yeah.
film, Tom McLaughlin, writer director of Friday the 13th, also worked as a consultant for them to make sure they stayed engaged in that 80s throwback. And then, of course, Tom McLaughlin, the writer director of Part 6, always had a secondary closing of Part 6 that included Jason's father, Elias Voorhees. But for
Mhm.
me, Maurice, the cool thing about Elias Voorhees, uh, I'm the only one that's ever played or ever been seen on screen as Elias Voorhees. So I'll always have ownership of being the first, like Ari being the first
Yeah.
Jason.
You can start your own Elias Voorhees band maybe, and you can
Yeah, I'll
guys
start my
go on
band.
tour.
I'll start my band. There you go.
Yeah. I seen you've got a couple of cool things coming up, and one of them is in the gas station in October in Texas, where the Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing is. Do you want to explain to us what that is and what people can expect?
Sure. The gas station is owned by a gentleman and his wife, Roy, and it happens to be the original shooting site of 1974. Just for the record, November 11th of this year will be 47 years. Anyway, he not only has a barbecue there for food and stuff, but he's got kind of a museum where they sell T-shirts and others. Well, it just happens that myself and Darcy DeMoss from Part 6 did a signing there a few months ago.
Yeah.
Uh, we had a nice long 2-hour line out the door. It was so successful that Roy and I had dialogue. Hey, what do you think about bringing Bob in, who played Leatherface? He has a wardrobe, and of course, I do wardrobe as Jason. Maybe October, that'll be 47 years, and we'll go out back, do some photo ops with the fans, and do autographs. And I was very happy that Roy thought it'd be a great idea because it was such a success on what we did. The fun thing is Jason Voorhees was stepping on Leatherface's territory. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And just for giggles and for fun, I went outside and appeared to be urinating on the side of the building just to annoy Leatherface. Um, I always try to do things to annoy my friends in crime, so to speak, Michael Myers, etc. Now, I love all of them with total respect. I would never disrespect anybody intentionally, but I always try to have a little fun so the fans can kind of see, oh, look at CJ. He's peeing on the side of the building. Wait till Leatherface catches that.
Yeah.
But it'll be
Uh,
it'll be a lot of fun. It's in October this year in Texas.
that leads me into my next point on conventions, and I love talking to people about conventions because unless you're in the horror industry, you don't understand like how big a following and how cool like the fans are. Like they're so into and engaged in the product. Like, have you got any fun stories off the top of your head from conventions?
Well, I guess one of the questions occasionally I get is what's the most odd object or thing that you've signed?
Yeah,
Now, you always sign stuff. Sometimes you'll sign somebody's arm and they go get it tattooed on and come back a couple hours later with your signature permanently on their body. But the oddest thing I've ever signed is I had a gentleman come up and take his fake leg off so I could sign it.
that's pretty cool.
And I will tell you that the fans of the horror industry in totality are amazing, Maurice. When you go to a convention, it doesn't matter if you're purple, green, or blue. It doesn't matter if you're from Pluto, Venus, or Mars. That entire genre gets along. You see people in suits, ties, full of tattoos, et cetera, and everybody is having a really nice time. There's never a conflict. You see people. I have a story. A lady came up to me to get an autograph, and I just kind of, hey, well, what do you do? She was a colonel in the United States Air Force. So I'm thinking,
Wow.
okay, so I'm a sergeant walking in to see my colonel, and behind her desk where she was going to put it is a picture of Jason Voorhees. Now, how does that set the tone for the meeting?
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, have you ever been like in a public place and someone has noticed you from like,
Oddly, oddly enough, yes. You would think we're in a hockey mask, but those that are horror fans, they know you. I've been through TSA in Atlanta and had the agent look at me and look at my card, my ID, and say, "Are you the guy that played Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th?" I go, "Yeah." "Oh man, I'm a big fan," and off they go. I've
wow,
also been at Universal Studios with my family and had walked by, and again, being 6'3", 6'4", had somebody point up to me and go, "Hey, you played Jason." Amazingly enough, people that know Friday the 13th, they're very aware of all the Jasons. And noticeably enough, if somebody says, "Oh, you did some acting, what did you do?" And the first thing I always say, "Well, are you familiar with a movie called Friday the 13th?" And they go, "Oh, yeah." I go, "Well, I played Jason." And they're like, "No way." And I said, "Yeah, way." And I say, because I don't want to fake them out, I said, "Well, don't get in trouble, but Google my name, CJ Graham." They do it right there in front of me, and then it shows pictures of me. They look at me and they go, "Oh, I can't believe this. This is so cool." Again, it just kind of brings a camaraderie between a lot of folks that may not sit there at the copy machine and talk about horror movies. However, if you bring the subject up, you'd be surprised how many people are aware of Jason, Friday the 13th, and Michael Myers.
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's humbly appreciative. I sometimes sit back and say, how did we get here? I mean, I ran casino resorts for 20 some odd years. 47 years ago, I was in the military. 87, I was in Culver City with Chippendales. I mean, I've done a wide variety of things in my life, but everybody remembers Jason.
Yeah, it's I normally have like guests on this will say from people in bands, people involved in the wrestling industry, people involved in horror. And I just think that those three things kind of all amalgamate into one. We often have conversations over here in Ireland, like when we go to a bar and we say like that guy's in the bar there and he's wearing a wrestling t-shirt, or that guy is wearing a Jason t-shirt. And it's kind of like the three things that I mentioned have like probably the most cult following in the world, I'd say.
And it is, like I said, I don't care if you're from Pluto, Venus, or Mars. There are people that it comes to wrestling, it comes to the form of music and horror movies. That group, that totality of people is just immense. You have no idea the millions and millions of people, and I say that openly, that follow horror. Maurice, I'll give you and your listeners a good example.
Yeah.
I think India has about 1.3 billion people. And if you show them a picture of Tom Cruise, they'll all say, Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise. If you show them a picture of CJ Graham, they just shrug their shoulders like, whatever. However, if you showed them a picture of the hockey mask, they'd say Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th. They
Yeah.
know the hockey mask.
Yeah. So what have you got coming up then? You've probably, like, obviously things over here in Ireland are still pretty poor. Like we're still kind of in a semi lockdown and things like that. So we've got no conventions or anything like that coming up. But I assume, like, by the way I see people in America, concerts are happening, conventions are happening. So you've probably got a busy schedule for the rest of the year, considering last year you probably didn't get to do a lot.
Yeah, a lot of the things lapsed over, and it's really hard for me to say no.
Yeah.
Um, my wife Ruby, she takes care of the horses. We have horses, alpacas, and bees on our ranch. I live in Montana, and so she says, "Go do it, have fun, see the fans." This year is a little busy, of course. I'll be going to Texas Frightmare in September. It's in Texas, huge convention. Spooky Empire in Orlando, Florida, of course, in October. Of course, August. Friday the 13th is on in August. So I'll
Yeah.
be going to the camp where the original movie was shot and having dinner and doing wardrobe photo ops with fans there. And then I'll be jetting down that same weekend to Monster Mania, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. There are, 3 or 4 others that are coming up. And I mean, everything from Kansas City to Midwest Horror, all the way to Detroit. I'll be up there for Motor City Horror Con. So the Alabama Comic Con. That's the one thing, Maurice. A lot of the Comic Cons have started to interverse with not only Friday the 13th, Jason, but horror.
Yeah.
So, they've got your voiceover characters and different things from different comics and stories, but now they're bringing horror figures in, like myself, or even Sam Jones. If you remember Sam Jones from The Flash,
Yeah.
I see him out there all the time. I see Lou Ferrigno out there all the time. Just recently, I did a show, Days of the Dead, in Las Vegas, and Alice Cooper was there. So Alice Cooper, I put wardrobe on. We did photos with the fans. It was me in full wardrobe and Alice Cooper sitting on his throne as a king, taking photos with our fans. So again, humbly to me, and it's not. I enjoy meeting the fans. I'm very appreciative. So I get to go out and have some fun. I will be going to United Kingdom for the love of horror, tentatively right now in October, providing, as you indicated, that Europe starts to relax a little bit and everybody starts taking care of, if the necessary, COVID-19 or however it's being regulated
Yeah.
in the European market. I've been fortunate, I'm a veteran, so I've been fortunate to be able to get my shots a few months ago. I still wear a mask, Maurice. If I go into a business and I notice that the clerks and the people behind the counter are still wearing their mask, I put mine on out of respect for them.
Yeah.
100%. So if United Kingdom allows us to come over in October, provided we have a card or whatever their restrictions will be, then hopefully I'll get to be at the For Love of Horror in Manchester in October.
And just to clarify, when you go into the stores, you're not wearing the hockey mask.
No, but you know what? There are a lot of people that have taken the hockey mask and cut it off right across the mouth and added the mask protection behind it and wear it around. And I've seen quite a few of them. In fact, Tom Savini, you may know, of course, being the horror icon he is, he and one of his partners make masks like that and sell them to fans to wear during the pandemic and things that were going on.
Yeah. Maybe you should wear one of them for the crack, as we say in Ireland.
Well, I ran casino resorts, Maurice, for 20, 25, 26 years, give or take. And you're never allowed to wear face makeup or mask in a casino. Yet in today's world, everybody wears a mask. Unfortunately, the interesting thing is wearing a hockey mask was always taboo. And actors and actresses always wanted their face to be seen. And I cannot tell you, Maurice, I'll do conventions with some of the actors and actresses, and they'll just look at me, CJ, If they'd asked me to put a hockey mask on, I'd have said, no, I want my face to be seen. And here you are at these conventions, and your fans line up and they love you. They never saw your face because you're in a hockey mask, but there's such an iconic following. So I always say it, but I really mean it sincerely. I'm very humbly appreciative.
Yeah, and I'm appreciative of talking to you today, man. It's been absolutely brilliant. And hopefully I get to see you over in Ireland someday.
It would be fun. I've obviously got some Norwegian descent. That's why you see all the stuff on my arms.
Yeah,
So
cool.
if you can see that, you know,
Yep.
I've got some of that in my bloodline. So I think between Ireland, Sweden, and Norway, and et cetera, I think somewhere we're all connected over there. So I would enjoy it. I look forward to it. I know it's a beautiful country. What a beautiful opportunity to come over one day and do a show and just meet everybody. So, I'll just throw a shout out to everybody at Cheap Heat Productions and all the listeners out there in the podcast. I appreciate you guys. I really appreciate you listening. And hey, this one's for Jason Voorhees.
Thanks a million, CJ.
Peace. I'll see you later. Take care. Be safe and healthy.
You too.
All right.